Good evening. Welcome to Larry Rinker Golf Live. Hope you're having a great week. And my guest today, 2011 PGA Teacher of the Year, Mike Malaska. So Mike, always great to catch up with you, my friend, and learn from you. You know so much about the body. You've been around. You have your mentor, Jim Flick, great friends with my mentor, Bob Toski. But tell me about this right here.
Well, if you hold that book up for a minute, the reason I put that on the cover was because there were swings that I made at a point in time in my career when I was thinking about every single one of those apparatuses at the same time.
I can't even believe how many things you have on this cover. There's a tennis racket back there. Geez.
And I had a lot more. I had to select the most important few.
Well, what I found interesting about your book, to my surprise, is you started out with the mental aspect of the game and how you have to have the right attitude approaching learning golf.
There's no question. I mean, as a student, if you don't have the right mental attitude as a student to learn something, then you're not going to enjoy the challenges that come along with it. And I think that's one of the things a lot of teachers miss, is helping your students become better students of whatever they're doing.
Right.
And so, you know, the first question I ask in that book, and we start out, why do you play the game? I mean, what's the point? I mean, are you trying to see how good you can get? Are you doing it for a social reason? Are you doing it to challenge yourself physically? Do your friends do it? So identifying why you play the game and where it is in your whole life is an important thing to decide, because that can determine how you decide how you have fun with it and how you progress and what's important and what isn't important. So yeah, I felt it really important to talk more about the mental side of the game, how you play the game, why you play the game, what the game can do for you, before we even talked about anything relative to what you consider a golf swing.
Well, when I worked with Fred Shoemaker, Extraordinary Golf, he's written two great books, Extraordinary Golf, Extraordinary Putting. You know, he asked me that question. Here I am, I've been on tour almost 20 years, and he's saying, why do you play golf? You know, and it's a tough question, isn't it?
No, I played, like I say, same like you. I played trying to get on tour, played a lot of tour events, majors, all of that. And I actually had Phil Blackmore. I went to the senior tour school when I turned 50, and he had worked with me, and I think I finished second in the first stage. There were 3 stages then. I won the second stage, and I was in 4th place going into the last round of the finals of the tour school, which they take 7 players. I hadn't shot a round over par in all those, so I'm playing well. So Phil asked me, he says, okay, what do you think? And I said, well, I'm going to tell you something. I haven't told too many people this. And he goes, what's that? I said, you know, Phil, I can see myself tomorrow shooting whatever I need to shoot, get my tour card, have the commissioner give me my card, take a picture of me with it, and then hand it back to him and say, give it to somebody who really wants this. Because what it was for me more, it was justifying my existence. It was me being able to prove to myself that, yes, I could make it. Now, did I really want to play on tour? Because you've played out there, I've played. That lifestyle, most people have no idea what that is. You know? So did I really want to go do that? Not really. So I ended up finishing 1 shot. I shot 72. I think the last round I finished 1. I think it's like 8th or 9th, and they took 7. But I had proved to myself, because the guys I played with, which were all tour players at the time, I just proved to myself that I was good enough to play. And that was really okay. I mean, so for me, I think most of the years that I kept playing when I started struggling was to try to justify the time and effort and try to figure it out to justify my existence more than it was to play the tour.
Right. Well, it's interesting how, you know, you really wanted to see what you could do. You went to 5 tour schools with 5 different swings. You probably went to the Champions Tour School with a 6 different swing, working with Phil. But, you really want to, it's just a gut check. You wanted to know if you could handle the heat, didn't you?
That's for sure. I mean, I had struggled with my swing relative to everybody I'd worked with when it really came down to having to put a number up and you had to hit shots. Most of the time, I won't say I would throw up all over myself, but I wouldn't hit the shots I needed to hit. And
Right.
I wanted to prove to myself that when it came to that time and I had to hit that shot, that I could stand up and I could hit the shot I needed to hit. And once I did that in that arena with that level of energy around me, I was, Larry, at that point, I mean, if I'd have made it, fine, I'd have played, but not making it, I walked into the parking lot and I wasn't necessarily disappointed because I really felt like I'd finally proved to myself that I could do it.
Right.
And that was that. After that, I mean, golf took on a whole new perspective for me after I did that when I turned 50, and it became a lot more fun again, and it became my definition of why do I play changed dramatically because I didn't have to justify my existence anymore.
Well, it's interesting to me that in golf, you look at a tournament and 156 players tee it up and there's only one winner. And so if you finish second, you were 154-1, but they say you didn't win. And I really believe there's wins in golf that people wouldn't say is a win. So you qualifying and making first stage was a win. You winning second stage, well, you won, but that's another win. And what you're saying here is you finishing 8th, even though you're one shot out, to you won. You accomplished really what it was you were trying to do. And you didn't really care about chasing the tour because you have such a successful teaching business with what you do. Why chase, your pipe dream to go out for a year? And now how do you reassemble what you did, with your teaching career? So it's really interesting. When people make tour schools, there are wins. You finish 125 and make the playoffs, you win.
That's no question.
You get your job back. So I think, everybody focuses on that win. Oh, did you win out on tour? No, I didn't win. I just played 525 events without winning, which only 4 guys have done. 4 guys have played 500 events without winning. It's a hard club to get in. But I look at it like, would I rather have made the top 125 as many times as I did and not won versus guys that won once or twice and made the top 125 less than a handful of times? I would have taken the career. I would have taken the years that I got to play, the years that I got to play with all the great players, all the great teachers, all the great sports psychologists I got to work with. And, I really cherish that. So I think there's a lot to be said for people that have stayed in the league as long as they have. You look at Ryan Palmer was in the final group last week at Memorial. I mean, there's a guy that, what a career he's had. And he's somebody that people look at like, well, he's just kind of an average tour player. He's won a few times, but don't really know who he is. Well, he's done something very few people can do to keep his card as long as he has. It's hard to do.
No, it's an incredible thing. And like you say, there's different ways, there's different parameters, and there's different goals when you look back on things. I mean, when I look back on it now, I think of me staying with it when it got really bad and something kept driving me to keep trying to figure out what happened to me. And that drive and that love for the game drove me to look outside of golf to try to figure out what happened. And then, like you say, the people that I was then exposed to, experts in different fields that allowed me to gain knowledge that helped me understand what was going on. And so even though I spent all those years and didn't make it full time, but played a lot, when I look back on, for me, I mean, I'm glad that I went through what I went through now because it allowed me to have the knowledge that I now have and then be able to use that knowledge to do what I'm doing and what we're doing now to affect probably for sure a lot more people than I would have affected if I'd have gone out on tour and maybe won once or twice and disappeared,
Right.
So And as a teacher like you are, we all tend inside of us, we're pleasers. You want to help people, which isn't the best personality trait to have as a tour player.
No. Well, the thing I love about you, James Seekman was on this show last week, and we recorded it. But guess what he was doing? He was playing in the senior section championship in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I know you still compete. And I really believe it's super important for teachers to continue to compete because we continue to learn. And now I learned something that I can help one of my students with because I competed. And
there's absolutely, I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I just played in our section championship 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas. 100 some odd guys, they cut it to 40. Okay, I made the cut. I finished like 20th against the young guys. This isn't the senior, this is the regular one. Now, a couple of the young guys, when I came over, they go, "So what are you doing here?" And I'm going, I'm
trying to kick your butt.
And actually, the guy who made the comment, we ended up getting into he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, if he says, so you think you can play, I'll bet you $20 or whatever it was." And I said, I don't necessarily want to gamble. And he kept pushing the envelope. So I finally said, "Okay, well, I beat him every day." So, but what you said about competing, what I find interesting, we're trying to teach people how to play. When you're trying to play the game, on the range, there isn't the same environment. It's not the same emotion. So if you don't get out and play yourself, you lose track of what it's like to have to actually aim at a target with some consequences and hit a shot and record a score.
Right.
And so my deal is the more I do that, I don't have to do it a lot, but I keep doing it to remind myself, is what I'm talking about usable? Can I make it work under pressure? Because if I can't make it work, and I'm trying to teach my average club person or whoever it might be, I'm saying this is really important and I can't do it or it's not helping me. So competing for me helps me to keep my game up, so I try to stay in shape and I keep playing. Plus, like you said, it keeps me connected with what the game really is and not get so involved in all of the numbers and the technology. You see, a lot of these guys, in my opinion, their knowledge level has outrun their intelligence level to be able to use it. So
well, the thing is, when we play, and here I'm just showing my swing here, but when we play, we've got to keep it pretty simple. And I'm upper core, which means I'm going to pivot more around the left side of my body here. So I'm going to pivot more around here. And then I'm going to have my little shift. I'm going to release early. So I call that release point. Where does that butt of the club point at the chest? Center of the chest. You can see that's a early release, as somebody would say.
Yeah.
I get a kick out of people would call me a flipper. But yet, as Bob Tosky and Jim Flick always taught us, as long as that club hasn't passed the left arm, we got control, don't we?
That's right.
Now, what happens after is pretty violent. I let it rip. There's a release there.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's upper core. That's the upper core release. And, it's kind of interesting. I had this young man, I actually have him in here for 3 days, but it was the coolest thing watching this kid whose best score is 86. Now we got his grip correct. His grip was off. But look at this. He's upper core. Look at that turn. He shifts. He's got that early release, but he's got good action.
Yeah.
And if you look at him from down the line, look how good that posture is as an upper core player. We're going to be the most bent over. We're going to have the least amount of knee flex. And somebody'd say, "Oh, P2, that's too inside. You've got to get the club on that club's got to be there." And it's just so funny, these position things. But anyway, he gets it up here and look at him playing it just slightly under and look at him rip it. Look at him jump going through and being an athlete.
Yeah.
Somebody might say, oh, that's too vertical going through. Well, if you're hooking it, recock it straight up, right?
No, yeah, for sure.
But here's a kid that's his best score is 86, and look at this swing. And I got rid of his swings that weren't great, but you know, we've got to figure out how things match up, Mike.
Well, yeah, and you've done a great job with that, with what you've done, with how you evaluate people, and that's been a big part of my career. And I think what's interesting is, first, if I was going to break teaching down into the two most important components to teach someone, is first understand who they are physically and how they can move and what they can and can't do, and then second, test how much control they have with their hands and how good their hands are at controlling the pace. Because if you're, this is pretty important. So if you're trying to make your body move in a manner that it can't, and on top of that, your hands aren't sure what they're supposed to do, I mean, it drives me crazy when I hear a lot of what's going on out there, because it assumes levels of control and competency with hands that people don't have.
No, they don't. And that's why I had kind of a beginner golfer a couple of weeks ago. She couldn't even find the ball, and I said, okay, we're going to the putting green.
Yeah.
But one thing I think that's really interesting, and I'm really surprised more people don't know this, and we know it from Right Balance, but when you are in an upper core stance with your weights in the balls of your feet, which means you're the most bent over, his carrying angle is 158, and he's going to be about right there in his knee flex, 158. Yeah. So it's pretty perfect posture for him. Now, with the weight in the balls of your feet, I challenge anybody to put the weight in your balls of your feet and try and rotate your hips through the ball. Clear the hips. So sick of hearing clear the hips. Well, you can't.
Yeah, won't happen.
So here's a 15-year-old kid that if he stood in one of his upper core stance with weight in the balls of his feet, if he was working with somebody trying to rotate that left hip and clear, guess what's going to happen to him, Mike? He's going to get hurt.
He's going to get hurt. The club's out of its arc. We can't control the momentum. It's a catch up. Then it's a matter of, it's a compensation on top of a compensation. And, that's where I see, I keep trying to just simplify this stupid game down for people.
Right.
And for me. And, there's only a few things that you kind of need to be pretty good at. And once you understand those few things, you can get pretty good.
Well, the interesting thing to me is, with this, I always tell my students that at the beginning, hey, what I'm going to tell you is going to be super simple. And anybody out there, if you want to know what upper core swing is or want to try it, well, guess what? You turn the right hip and you pivot around your left leg, okay? That's your back swing. And the forward swing, you let your arms, hands, and wrists swing the club past your body, and you are going to use the ground, but that brings you around to your finish. Now, how many people tell that or talk about that sequencing, Mike? And here's the drill I give everybody. So I get their feet closed, their toes twisted away from the target. I've contorted them where they can't clear and turn, and now they got to use their arms and hands to take the club from there to there. Right there. That's upper core.
Well, but see, Larry, that little movement, that little drill you do there, which I do a version of that, if people can't learn how to make, let's say most people, okay, there's obviously going to be exceptions, but if people can't learn how to make the club and their arms go faster than their chest and their body, they have virtually no chance of ever being very good. 90%, I don't know what number, but it's a huge, huge number.
No, it is. And the funny thing is that if I go back in here with Right Balance, we have 3 models. So if we're talking a low core player, which they're ghost, here's Kathleen, my low core player, strong grip. Think Dustin Johnson. Look at her at impact. Look how rotated, and look at the shaft, and look at the grip at impact.
Yeah.
Well, if you can rotate like that, you can have Dustin Johnson's grip. but I don't know many people that can rotate. I've only measured 13 people out of 850 like Kathleen.
Well, I think there's that little term. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and first of all, you got to understand, or people need to understand something about the body. Your body wants to move in straight line forces. It works in straight line forces. So to even talk about turn or rotation is a bit confusing, because how your neurological system picks up on that or decides what it's going to do, you can do it the wrong way. So really what you're moving, like what you said, when you go back, what you're doing is your right leg's pushing your right hip socket back.
Right.
And because your right hip socket gets pushed back, your pelvis appears to have rotated, but there's no pressure in your lower lumbar spine, and you're not resisting the movement of that hip socket. So when and our industry's gone through a phase. It went through this phase where everything was kick your right knee in, restrict your hips, and coil up against your lower body. Well, if you notice, now you're seeing Dustin Johnson, all these guys, what are they doing? As they go back, they're trying to almost straighten their right legs. Why? Because it's getting their right hip back further, and they can make a little bit bigger swing, and they're finding that that's more efficient, easier on them, and they can create more speed. Well, we could get into the physiology behind it. Don't need to go there. It's freedom of movement.
Well, the interesting thing to me is you are the worldwide director of instruction for the Nicholas Golf Schools. And here you talk about straight line force. Well, what did Jack always say he did with his legs? You never heard him say the word clear.
No.
You heard him say he drove his legs. Now look at that pivot.
No question.
That's an upper core pivot. He pivoted around his left leg. And he always wanted his hands high, but look at him drive laterally, and it's not that much, is it?
No.
And now he comes in and his right elbow's behind his rib cage, and this video's old, but at impact, he isn't that rotated.
No, Jack had very little separation. In fact, I just talked to him on the phone about 2 hours ago, and we were talking. I've been very fortunate and to be around him and talk to him, and and he made a comment about what he's seen in a lot of these guys now. He says, these guys are starting to actually let themselves just go on their backswings. He goes, my whole career I never thought about turn. So all I thought about was get my right hip out of the way, and then once I got my right hip out of the way where there was space, then it was take the club to the ball and use my legs to stabilize and to drive, what he said, drive to move into my left side, keep my right hip, keep that space open, and then hit it. And he says, I just let my body go where it wanted to go. But he said he never, ever worked on trying to clear his hips, ever.
Right. And I love that you talk about straight line. He thought about his legs driving right at the target, didn't he?
Yeah, he felt like that that it was from the top, that the club was coming in a straight line. That's why he said he couldn't release the club too soon from the top, because he felt like when he got to the top, when he started down, he went laterally and got the club out. So he felt like the club was coming right straight into the back of the ball. He didn't want the club coming from under here where he felt like he had to wing it and try to catch it up. So Jack is really simple in the couple of things that he wanted to do in his swing. Did he tinker around? Oh yeah, I've talked to him about things he tinkered with, but he wouldn't tinker with something for long. And
that's one of my favorite stories you and I have shared through the years is, how long is it going to take when you work on something to have it hold up under pressure? And Jack's like, a couple days.
Yeah.
So and I really believe that's true. And you and I both have worked on a lot of different things in our swing and tinkered. And we played 5 holes after beating our brains in the dirt out on the range. And after 5 holes this isn't working.
No.
And the interesting thing is Jack Nicklaus had upper core concepts, keeping his back at the target as long as he could and letting the club go by him. He felt like he released it right from the top. He didn't try and clear his hips. I mean, all this stuff is upper core, which I am, and most of us are. But the real thing is, and this is something Bob Toski said, and I got a new book coming out in the next month or so called The Journeyman, and Toski wrote one of the forewords, but we have to teach the individual. We can't teach the same thing to everybody, Mike.
No, and Larry, I keep watching people, and I hear things, and then I watch it and I go, I'm not observing what I'm hearing. So all this talk about get to the top and then just clear and go.
Right.
Well, no. See, everybody, if I take a ball here, if I'm going to throw a ball, okay, see, my shoulder socket has to be relaxed because my arm moves a lot further than my shoulder does. So when I watch people, almost everybody who shows up who's trying to twist out of the top, their shoulder sockets get locked. So what happens, it's like me throwing a ball. If all of a sudden, if I'm throwing a ball like this, it's one thing. You see, there's my arm. That's
right.
How to throw. So my shoulder socket's not moving much. So my arm's moving significantly faster and more than my shoulder. Well, if I all of a sudden tighten my shoulder socket and I tried to throw it like this, I couldn't throw it very hard.
No. And can you believe they're teaching people to chip and pitch the ball like that? Like with your pivot instead of letting the arm just throw the ball?
No, see, you might get away with it in a little short shot, but here's the problem. You don't have a lot of feel, but here's the problem. If your brain starts to think that that's the task of a golf swing, then it's going to morph itself all the way up into everything you do. So right. in every sport that I've ever played, having your arms be like, see, my arms are going all over the place, and what's my shoulders doing? They're not moving much.
Right.
So if you fundamentally, if your swing doesn't have this in it, I don't care what method you're trying. Everybody, regardless of what they do, when they get here, their arms accelerate and go faster than their bodies.
Right.
Okay.
They have to.
Or they couldn't hit at 340.
No, or 423.
So these guys, when they say on TV, oh, he held the face off there this time to hit, I go, what? He held the face off and hit it 410 in the air. Yeah, you're right. He held the face off. How stupid can you get?
Now, he threw a 99-mile-an-hour fastball and held off.
Didn't use his hands. Just kept his wrist stable.
No, great stuff, Mike. Well, it's always great to catch up with you. I really enjoy, our chats, and really enjoyed having you, on my Sirius XM show. And I'm trying to do two things at once, which is always hard for me.
Well, Larry, I appreciate it too. And I don't know if you want to call, I don't think we're a dying breed, because I think that what we've learned and what we're doing is coming back, and it's helping people. And, people can go to malaskagolf.com, and they're going to see a lot of the same things that you're talking about. And I just know from my experience over the years, and everybody I've been involved with, the people I teach, that this game is played with your hands. And then you have to understand how your body moves for you to be able to accommodate what you're trying to do with your hands and arms to get it to the ball.
I couldn't agree more. And I just feel blessed. Both you and I had Bob Toski and Jim Flick as our mentors. Malaskagolf.com is where you can find out more about Mike. And Mike, you've got a great YouTube channel too. I'm sure all you got to do is Google Mike Malaska Golf or Malaska Golf. You can find it. I'd like to thank my sponsors, Titleist FootJoy, the Ritz-Carlton Golf Club Orlando, and the Red Sky Golf Academy in Vail, Colorado. Also, FlightScope, V1, PGA Tour, PGA of America, and Right Balance. And Mike, love your studio there. Nice simulator, good setup.
Got the guitar.
I got the Martin back here. But always great to catch up. Be well, my friend. Until next time. And everybody out there, hope you're well. And we're on Thursday, 7:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern with Larry Rinker Golf Live. Till next week, keep swinging.